Hey guys. Today, I will show you a romance fantasy film. Spoilers ahead, watch out and take care. Calvin Weirfields is a novelist who found incredible success at an early age but is struggling to recreate the success of his first book, as well as to forge relationships. His therapist tasks him to write a page about someone who likes his dog, Scotty. After a dream in which he meets a strange young woman, Calvin is inspired to write about her.
Your dog might pee like a lady, but I like him anyway.
What did you say?
I like him, just the way he is.
Calvin tells Dr. Rosenthal that he is falling in love with this character and telling him all about Ruby Sparks. Calvin's brother Harry and sister-in-law Susie come to visit, and Susie finds women's clothing around the house.
Scotty. Shut up.
Calvin, throw these away.
Harry reads some of Calvin's new writing and criticizes it, saying that his version of a woman is overly idealized and unrealistic.
Listen, I'm not saying you can't write. I'm saying you don't know about women.
Calvin writes a passage about Ruby falling in love with him, before falling asleep at his typewriter.
I promise.
I'll take him out.
Great. Thank you.
The next day, he is stunned to find Ruby in his kitchen, a living person.
Calvin!
He asks Ruby about the clothes that he found in his house.
Are these, by any chance, yours?
Yeah, of course they are. Who else would they belong to?
He calls Harry, who does not believe him and advises him to meet with someone to take his mind off things.
Where are you going?
Ruby is confused by Calvin's behavior and insists on coming along. But he leaves her to shop while he meets with Mabel, a fan of his book who gave him her number.
Me, I can see her.
You can see her.
Okay, let's not make this.
Ruby finds them and believes Calvin is cheating on her. The ensuing confrontation proves she is not a figment of his imagination.
She's real. I'm sorry. I'm having trouble wrapping my head around the reality of this situation. And you're here.
Calvin introduces Ruby to Harry, who is incredulous and suggests alternate explanations, but Calvin proves that his writing directly affects Ruby.
How? I don't know how. It's love. It's magic.
He makes Ruby speaks French by simply typing it on his typewriter.
Qu'est-ce qu'il y a?
He asks Harry not to tell anyone of Ruby's origins, insisting that since he wrote her into existence, he truly knows her, and asserts he will never write about her again. Months later, Calvin reluctantly takes Ruby to meet his free-spirited mother Gertrude and her boyfriend Mort. While the outgoing Ruby enjoys herself, the introverted Calvin grows jealous of her time with other people, and her happiness fades with his increased gloominess.
I love you.
Honey, I'm trying to read.
Returning home, their relationship becomes tense and a depressed Ruby explains to Calvin how lonely she is, suggesting they spend less time together. Fearful of Ruby's desertion, Calvin writes that Ruby is miserable without him. Ruby returns, now incredibly clingy.
Calvin, I want to come home. Where are you going?
Tiring of this, Calvin writes that Ruby becomes constantly happy, but he is morose, knowing her happiness is artificial. After talking with Harry, Calvin tries to write Ruby back to her original self, but his wording leaves her confused. They fight once more, and he attempts to cheer her up by taking her to a party hosted by author Langdon Tharp.
Maybe you're right. Maybe I just need to get out, see people, be social.
Stay there, I'll be right back.
Calvin leaves Ruby and talks with others about his unfinished manuscript. He runs into his ex-girlfriend Lila, who accuses him of being uninterested in anyone outside of himself.
The only person that you wanted to be in a relationship with was you.
Nothing.
Langdon finds Ruby alone and flirts with her, convincing her to strip to her underwear and join him in the pool.
Oh boy.
Furious and humiliated, Calvin drives Ruby home.
What's going on here?
Calvin!
What was that? Do you want to know my rules? Other men.
So now I'm responsible for what other people are thinking.
Yes, you are responsible.
You don't get to decide what I do.
Wanna bet?
What?
They fight, and Ruby tells Calvin that he cannot stop her from doing what she wants. As she prepares to leave, Calvin reveals that she is a product of his imagination and that he can make her do anything he writes. Their growing argument leads to a crazed Calvin forcing Ruby to perform increasingly frenzied and humiliating acts. Ruby collapses, and when Calvin tries to approach her, feeling confused, lost, and having no control of her own self, she locks herself in his room. Distraught and ashamed, Calvin writes a final page stating that as soon as Ruby leaves the house, she is no longer his creation, no longer subject to his will, and is free. He leaves the manuscript outside her door with a note telling her to read the last page and that he loves her. The next morning, Calvin finds the note and Ruby gone.
Calvin?
She's gone.
Time passes, and Harry suggests Calvin write a new book about his experiences with Ruby. The novel, The Girlfriend, is a success. Walking Scotty in the park, Calvin sees a woman who appears to be Ruby but has no recollection of him, reading his book.
Have we met before? You seem really familiar. So that's why you look so familiar.
She says that Calvin also seems familiar, which he deflects by showing her his author's photo on the book. She jokes that they ought to start over, urging him, "Don't tell me how it ends," to which he replies, "I promise."
Can we start over?
Yes.
Just don't tell me how it ends, okay?
Promise.
Okay guys, so that's it for today. See you next time, subscribe for more videos like this.